I am very excited today. I'm here with a very special guest and one of my favorite authors, William Ramsey, who wrote Prophet of Evil, Aleister Crowley, 9/11, and the New World Order. And without further ado, I just want to give William a chance to introduce himself and let you all know what kind of work he does and where you can find his work. Hi, William. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. Great to be with you.
If you don't mind, just let everybody know who you are and how you got into this and what kind of research you do.
Well, I think this is my first book, Prophet of Evil. It's very timely right now. We're almost at the 20-year anniversary of the 9/11 event. I wrote it 11 years ago. I think I first published my first edition in 2010. And it was really kind of an outgrowth of my research into 9/11 and Aleister Crowley. So the title kind of is a long title, Prophet of Evil, Aleister Crowley, 9/11, and the New World Order. And I've written 5 books since then, and I have 5 documentaries on Vimeo. And I've
Wow.
been very active. I got kicked off of YouTube, so I've been very active on podcasting and broadcasting. So my kind of investigative journalism broadcast is titled William Ramsey Investigates. So you can see tons of interviews and things like that there. But this book I'm particularly proud of. I think it stands the test of time. A lot of people reference it, but it kind of fuses together the concepts of really Aleister Crowley and the 9/11, which a lot of people would not put together. I didn't initially put it together, but there's numerical ideological connections between what people talk about the New World Order and Aleister Crowley and 9/11.
Absolutely. And from there, I think that's a perfect opportunity to dive right into the cover page. So if you will you let people know how you first discovered that, when you discovered it, and for people that don't know exactly what I'm referring to as far as the cover page and the
Well,
flag.
it's the numerology really is kind of like the giveaway, right? So the actual date is 9/11. So you see these numbers, and I was kind of wondering there's a over predominance of this number 11 in that date and the buildings and things like that. But there was another researcher, his name was May, M-A-Y, and he saw something he called it like some code. So he was part of what's known as the Ghost Troop, which was like a group of people talking during that time. But he never made the connection to the Western esoteric tradition. So I was like, that was kind of what started me off. So I was kind of more aware of what these numbers meant and was trying to figure out, what the connection was, and started putting pieces together. And 11 is a very important number in the Western esoteric or occult tradition. And it represents a lot of things, but it really specifically represents a lot of things to Aleister Crowley. It was really the number of magic. So you see the pentagram and the hexagram come together, which is the macrocosm and the microcosm come together in the magician in the number of 11. So that's very important. In how Crowley, I got led to Crowley, is I kept saying this 93. And if you look at like the picture of my book, you'll see the 11, flight 93, 93rd floor, 77. So all these numbers in Crowley's tradition, he really created his own religion. He was really a magus, a very intelligent guy, but he created his own religion called Polema, but it had a lot of numerology in that religion. And actually other religions do. Even Christianity has numeral numbers. I don't think they're reference numbers in Christianity. It's the same thing in Polema. So 93 in Crowley's system, 11 represents a lot of stuff. So there was in Crowley's kind of favorite book or most important book, which is called the Book of the Law, which he received from what he called an entity called Awas in 1904 in Egypt. But 11 was included in that. So it said 11 is those who are of us. So it's this rap kind of satanic reference. And then 93, Crowley used something called gematria, which is actually kind of a construct within the Jewish Kabbalah, where you take words and give them a numerical value, and those numbers add up. Well, he found that these two kind of major words in Greek in his religion, thelema, which I just mentioned, and agape, which means love, both added up in the, I think, kind of English Kabbalah or the Arabic numeral system to 93. So it became a shorthand among people who followed Crowley, 93, 93, 93. So 93 is very important to Crowley. 77 itself was represented kind of he had this difference between the Babylon and the beast, and those conjoined together were 77, two 77s together. So 77 was important to Crowley, and then 175 was a ritual, or is a ritual in Crowley Salimic tradition, about the God who you adore, and it's often used in adoration of Satan. So you'll see that even in Western culture, the use of adoration towards Lucifer. So you see all that numerology in there, and that's really kind of what set me off. Once I realized that, I really wanted to find out who Aleister Crowley was, and I didn't want to kind of take what other people were saying. I truly tried to get the source material. I read a lot of his biographies, Kaczynski, Sutin. There were some, his literary biographer was a book called The Great Beast. So I read those, but then there's tons of source documents that you can read. So I really look at those documents. And then in this book, I really focused on people who knew Crowley. So you'll see vignettes or pieces in the book of people who either met Crowley or with Crowley, like Ernest Hemingway, strange characters, people that we know kind of publicly. But then that kind of came together. So really what the whole gist of the book is Crowley's ideas of creating kind of a new world order, a slave state. He really believed in aristocracy. So he believed the slave shall serve. That was an important line in his doctrines. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of see this kind of elite revolution in 9/11, and really the new world order. People have called it the old world order. So it's really kind of an elite idea of really controlling the world. So I do believe in part Crowley's ideas and occultism all wrapped up and intertwined in the event of 9/11.
And before we get too deep into Crowley, I was wondering if you wanted to discuss how you actually made the connection of the floor numbers and where the flights hit.
Well, I mean, you can just look at it. I mean, if you watch the videos and things like that, I think it's roughly approximate on those numbers. I don't, whether that was intentional, I believe it probably was intentional.
Will you explain for people what we're referring to for those that haven't read your book?
Right. So, I mean, I think it's the North Tower and the South Tower, both, by the way, 110 stories. So it's an 11 there. And there's a huge 11 just on the skyline. And I think in the occult, the 11 rep is an ideogram. So it's two opposites. And it was a huge magical working, because the new World Trade Center is it looks like a union of those opposites in the hexagram. So there's some very deep things happening with those buildings. They really were also called Nelson and David after the Rockefellers, who really financed everything. And you followed the Rockefeller family. But I think that those numbers, I think that the planes and the flights and the numbers were all very important elements in a very thought out, well drawn out plan. And so that numerology probably is there for the room, the tower, I mean the floor numbers in the towers. But interestingly, the 9/11 event was September 11th, 2001. Well, there's a very famous George Bush Sr. speech that took place on September 11th, 1990. So 11 years to the date, he talked about a new world order and talked about against the law of the jungle. So you see this, I think that the plot and the plan was very much laid out. And actually there was a senator from Nebraska who actually kind of blurted that out. I think was trying to tell people, hey, this thing was he was on the 9/11 commission. So there's a lot of numerology, but it's not the numerology people would think at first glance where like the numbers have power. They're not numbers have power. They have references to meaningful axioms or ideas within the Western esoteric tradition.
Oh, I've never really heard it put that way. That's interesting. And I've seen your film relating to this with the same title. I rented it on Vimeo. People can go there and see it. I really strongly suggest people do that. One thing I was gonna bring up about the George Bush speech that he first gave, I think it was at the United Nations 11 years to the day before. He gave this same speech multiple times, and you show that in your film. And one thing that struck me, and I wanted to ask you your opinion on it, is him referring to the law of the jungle. Right. So did you think this was the book of the law?
I'm not totally sure, but he did say something very occult, which is the bridge, crossing the bridge, or the Pontex map. It's very, and you'll see crossing the Rainbow Bridge in the occult. So that was a very heavy duty, very deep occult Masonic reference. And we know both the Paul Butch family, probably even Prescott Butch, I think they were all Skull and Bones. So they're in an occult secret society. They've been through a death and rebirth ritual in a tomb, and very graphic in the totality of what's going on. But they had some of those rituals were filmed. So these guys are skilled in the adult occult, and they have their own library in Skull and Bones. So they might have been exposed to Crowley there, or an even kind of unknown and really not verified, but there's a decent chance that Barbara Bush is the illegitimate offspring of Crowley. I don't know if anybody could ever prove that, but the similarities of the way she looks and the timing of her birth, where Crowley was, where her mom was, her name was Pauline Robinson in France, it all kind of syncs up in a very strange way, but would create a continuum from the 30s all the way up to 2001.
Yeah, and it would make sense. It would help with some of the so since we've gone there, let's talk about I guess the pet goat a little bit, which I have your book here open to Levi's rendition of the Baphomet, which is very important, a very important symbol, not only in Western esotericism, but really I've wondered if this was a almost a remake, and other authors, particularly Michael Hoffman in Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare, if this is a continuation of what is in Rosicrucian manifestos, or the alchemists, the ancient alchemist ideas of transmutation, or human transmutation, or mental transmutation. But I wondered if you would kind of speak on that, Levi and his rendition of the Baphomet, and how that's
well, Eliphas Levi died in 1875. Crowley was born in 1875. So Crowley didn't just translate his books, but he thought he was the reincarnation of Eliphas Levi. And so Eliphas Levi was kind of a groundwork and probably one of the main influences upon Crowley. And Eliphas Levi was an ex-Catholic priest, and he wrote this kind of famous picture of the goat of Mendes, or Baphomet, what they called. And he's making all these signs, solve et coagula, which is an alchemical axiom, and he's got the moon, the suns. It looks like what is it, Comet Pizza, actually, but yeah, but that's a whole nother story. But the so Eliphas Levi is a very important person in the Western esoteric tradition, but how much of his ideas permeated 9/11, I don't know, but I do believe that alchemy is really a very important. I mean, you can see it in Harry Potter, really. Potter is an alchemist, and you want to talk about 11s. Harry Potter's name is an 11, a 5 and a 6. His wand is an 11. So you can, people are being exposed to that. They're being almost initiated through Harry Potter.
I didn't know that. So you're probably obviously aware that if you put the Harry Potter logo in a mirror, it says 9/11.
I'm not surprised. And you have the lightning. So right. Christ said, "I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning," or something. I can't remember the exact same thing. So lightning is, and then that's on his forehead, right? And actually, it's very clever. Harry Potter does kind of tie in a lot of ways, but it also is very cleverly written, because the way it's juxtaposed is the Muggles are the really boring people, but then there's the bad magician, and therefore this magician's good, right? So they're actually telling people that magic actually is good. I don't practice magic. I'm a Christian. Jesus Christ the Messiah. I don't believe in any of that. So, but you can understand these overlapping themes. And I think Harry Potter is a very important cultural phenomenon to understand, that a lot of its themes and ideas and numerology overlaps with 9/11. But I don't know, getting back to your point, Eliphas Levi, I don't know exactly how much, but alchemy, you're transmuting, like the alchemists of old tried to take actual physical matter and change it into gold. They realized they couldn't do that, but those ideas philosophically translated into the occult tradition. So you're trying to turn yourself from base material to gold, right? So that's it. And actually, I mean, the whole idea of synthesis, what is it? What's that calculation? Antithesis, synthesis comes together. That actually comes from magic, actually, believe it or not. It was used by Hegel.
The Hegelic dialectic.
Yeah, the dialectic actually comes from magic. So maybe that's something going on in 9/11. I'm sure 9/11 was an initiation of the whole world, and Americans in particular, into a totally different. And you can hear those guys talk about ground zero. They have their ideas about what they intended to do after, I think, were within the event. And there's massive changes that happened. We had basically a very the Patriot Act, wars, genocide in the Middle East. So really dark stuff came out of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. From there, will you talk a little bit about the Golden Dawn and Aleister's influence or involvement, rather?
So Crowley, very intelligent guy, came out of Darby's Plymouth Brethren, but he was in a subset of the Plymouth Brethren called the Exclusive Brethren. So his family thought they were really almost puritanical. And the father was a pamphleteer, a Christian pamphleteer, who died when Crowley was 12, left him to his mother and his uncle. He didn't like his uncle. He was sent to Plymouth Brethren boarding schools where he was beaten and he almost died. So he had a very negative feeling for that. Went to Cambridge and really became interested in mountain climbing, poetry, and occultism. So once he got done with Cambridge, he left without getting a degree. He thought it was beneath him. He found and was in the kind of looking and searching for occult stuff. And what he found was the Golden Dawn, a pre-existing group of kind of post-Masonic occultists. So they had already gone through Masonry and their next step, and they were involved in ritual magic, and all their stuff are really available today. A lot of it's published. But for Crowley, this was kind of like a sacrament for him, he said. He was initiated into the Golden Dawn. They were using a Masonic temple right outside of Buckingham Palace at the time. So he was, I think, initiated somewhere in the late 1890s and became very involved in advanced grades. There were 2 levels. He took on he learned from this guy named McGregor Mathers, who was a ceremonial magician, which means you've got all the implements, the wand, the floor coverings, and all that stuff. So that's where Crowley kind of got his start in actually practical ritual magic. And that was kind of a springboard. So he learned a lot from there. He actually took an oath not to publish their stuff, and then he published it, and there was a lawsuit. So there's a record of Crowley and Mathers suing each other, and the judge thought it was a big joke. They took themselves seriously. He had conflicts with William was it Butler? I think it was William Butler Yeats, who's a well-known poet, and who was also a member of the Golden Dawn, who attributed all his poetic creations to magic. So he was mixing with kind of like the elite there, and that was really kind of a springboard before he even started Thelema. So he learned a lot from that. So that's like the ritual magic elements. And then, you have to put Crowley within the elite. He was definitely a classist in a very class-conscious country at that time, and very wealthy. He had, the equivalent of his inheritance was like $20 million today, which he blew through. But he didn't have he never worked in his life. He was I would call him a spoiled child of privilege. And so that was really the Golden Dawn was hyper influence. I think really one of the primary occult influences upon Crowley. And there's actually a book in there there were 3 guys who started the Golden Dawn, and one wrote a book whose title is, I think it's Numbers and Their Occult Mystic Value. His name was William Wynne Westcott, and it's Numbers, Their Occult Power and Mystic Virtue. So it says, upon the number 11, this seems to have been the type of number with an evil reputation among all peoples. The Kabbalists contrasted it with the perfection of the Decad, or 10. And so 11 is the essence of all that is sinful, harmful, and imperfect.
And
so that's what he's picking up from the Golden Dawn.
And that's one of the founders of the Golden Dawn who wrote that?
That's correct. William Wynne Westcott was his name, a post-Masonic kind of magician.
Do any of these founders speak about Hermes? I mean, you have this Hermeticism. So how does Hermes come into play there?
Well, I think so. I think that they, the gods, the ancient gods are symbols for them. They're not real gods, and they symbolize certain precepts. So Hermes was a messenger, I think. Like Hermione is the female Hermes of Harry Potter. But I think that you see that intertwining thing, like you mentioned, the what do you call it? The Goat of Mendes or whatever, the Baphomet has that circular Hermes thing going on there. But I think it's just a part of the occult tradition. I wouldn't say Crowley really emphasized that as much.
Okay. And talking about Harry Potter, I've discussed this before. It seems that you've done, quite a bit of research into magic. So I've always, it seems that this J.K. Rowling character, she wasn't just a, housewife or, down on her luck in a coffee shop writing a novel. It seems she really did, some studying.
Yeah, so she has a very good. At 32, I think was when the first Harry Potter was written. So she had an excellent understanding of the Western esoteric tradition. I know that she was a classics major in college, so she may have picked up stuff on the way, but she had the foundations on point right there when Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was, which is a play on the Western esoteric idea of the Philosopher's Stone, right?
Right.
So
right.
she had it all down: names, numbers, Hermione, Hermes, all these characters, Harry Potter. Is pretty remarkable. So some people have disputed her genesis story of Harry Potter. I think that she might have had help from the outside, or she might have a ghost. She might just be a front for somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could never prove that, but it wouldn't be the first time that artists have had ghostwriters or people ghostwrite books for people.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Or yeah, almost like a lifelong actor.
Right. Well, here's another thing about her is that her real middle name isn't K. She doesn't even have a middle name. She just added the K there, which is the 11th letter of the alphabet. So she's trying to tell people something.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know
That's
that.
a known fact. You can go look that up on Wikipedia.
I did not know that. So here on page 78, where you are talking about Mason lodges, I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. Masonic lodges have a copy of the Book of the Law.
Right. They call it the Book of Law, but it's not Crowley's Book of the Law. It's what they call the Book of Law. So Crowley's borrowing that concept and titling his book Book of the Law. But in the Masonic lodges, they either have a Bible, a Quran, or something that they would call Book of the Law.
Right. But so that's basically where he got the title of his.
Right. So he's borrowing from Masonry to kind of create his own religion. So Book of the Law is very paramount. And then when he created his Gnostic Mass, which was kind of like one of the things that he did, he actually borrowed a lot of the symbolism from Orthodox Christianity. The centerpiece for that was the Book of the Law that he received from Aiwass, who he later says was Satan, right? So he later says it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so since you brought up Aiwass, will you talk about Oz and the Wizard of Oz and how this ties in and the number 77?
Right. So Crowley, Liber Oz was his book. It was book 77, which he called Liber Oz. So that Oz was also a gematria term. So OZ turns out to be 77. And so his Liber 77 was where he says, like, there's no man but God, no God but man, actually. And, if anybody crosses your path, you can have the right to kill them. So pretty brutal ideas, but he's broken it down, and I have the kind of calculation at the end of my book about 77. So you have to kind of read it, but it ties into a lot of the ideas of Crowley. Like I said earlier, it was the element of Babylon, Babalon, he titled it. So Oz was basically corresponds to 77 in Crowley's ideas.
Do you think the Wizard of Oz stories and films were influenced then by Crowley?
Maybe, but that guy, what was his name? Berg? I forgot what the writer's name was. He was very much, I think he was a Blavatsky follower, right? So he was into her religion. So I think he integrated a lot of stuff from that.
Okay. I find it so eerie to think about this magician behind a curtain, and even some other researchers who I can't think of the name of now. One in particular, Jake Kotza. He would look at things synchromysticism.
Right. Well, here's you want to talk about something that's very odd and very synchronous mysticism. Go watch the African American version of the Wizard of Oz called The Wiz. Do you remember that? It had Michael Jackson in it. Do you know where they finish off doing their last scene in the Emerald City?
Yeah.
You do? Where did
Yeah,
they ended up?
yeah, yeah. But go ahead and tell me, it's the World
Well,
Trade Center,
yeah, it's
isn't
the World Trade Center. So it's right there at the very center. They have the ball, the spherical caryatid, which is a term of a temple, and that ball features into Fight Club and all these other things. So it's featured in Fight Club, which came out in 1999. So there's all kinds of. They knew
it?
what was going on in 1999. They foreshadowed 9/11 with
That's
information.
basically what I was getting at. Because yeah, there's pyramids and they're almost dancing around that sphere in a ritualistic fashion. And I think they go through some sort of portal or gate after crossing the bridge to get to the Emerald City, which is the World Trade Center.
And go look at Michael Jackson's stuff. There actually are obelisks at the end of Thriller and the videos. There's a lot of occultism there, much more than people might be aware of. He used to have a jacket with the 777s down there, which is what Crowley's tables of correspondences were. He put together this table that took all the world's religion and showed that, Egyptian and Greek gods were just different names for the same concept.
Right.
So you'll see that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is. Have you heard then about the term Prisca Theologia, which I feel
Say
like
that again. That sounds familiar.
Prisca Theologia.
No, what is that?
It's basically what you said, the idea
Okay.
that all religions stem from the same
Root or something.
or an ancient theology is what it basically means. And I read about it first in Michael Hoffman's book, but the more I have read your book and read others' books like S.K. Bain's 9/11 as Mass Ritual,
Right. Well,
just going
we
through
can go into S.K. Bain. All his research is all based upon my book. He admits it on the intro. But he may not even have written that book. It may have been written by Peter Levenda, and that he's just a front.
I wonder about it.
No, it's even worse because, in my opinion, they took my core concepts and then they twisted it and took out all the stuff I had about George Bush Sr. and all the stuff about the New World Order. So it's actually, in my opinion, a limited hangout that actually is kind of, in my opinion, they're mind raping the people who think that that's an honest book.
Well,
and I think it's that bad. It's that really that bad. It's very grotesque, actually.
That's interesting because it kind of thanks for sharing that.
My suggestion to you is to get my book and put their book next to them and go read the last chapters and see who's telling you the truth and who's saying that Tempe, Arizona is going to blow up on 4/4 and all this nonsense. Do yourself a favor, and then you got to ask, why is this book out there? Why did this guy work? Oh, whoa, he worked for the Project of the New American Century. He's admitted that.
And I think he was a Kabbalah. He admitted to being in Kabbalah as well. And I
think I have to go back and find this out, but I think Peter Levent.
Yeah, I didn't actually.
I'm telling you, there's very educated people who got, in my opinion, got fooled by that book and got played like a accordion. So I feel sorry for you. If you think that book is legit, it's my opinion, but I truly feel sorry for you. We can get. I mean, it's really bad.
That's very interesting because on that note, I'm a big fan of Michael Hoffman's books, and he just published his 20-year sequel to that book I previously mentioned. It's called Twilight Language, and what you're speaking about almost kind of makes so much sense in the fact that what someone would do is take your truth and spill it out in a way that would shock and awe, but then spin it and add, I couldn't even finish the prediction at the end. I actually didn't finish that part of the book, the new coming predicted 9/11. And
did anything that they predicted come true? Did anything predicted in that book come true?
No, I don't believe
zero.
So. Nothing. Was it published right around the same time that you put yours in?
My book was published in 2010, and I think theirs came out 2012, 2013. It gets pretty deep, but I feel sorry for you. If you think that's an honest book, I feel sorry for you. That's my opinion.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, it's deep. But that guy, hey man, I'm telling you.
2022 and the coming of God. And anytime someone is predicting the coming of God, I'm always very
you should be very suspicious of Bain and Levenda. especially if you're a Christian. You should be very.
Thank you.
I mean, we can
Okay.
talk offline, baby. This is much worse than you think. But
Oh,
I
really?
feel sorry for anybody who thinks that book's an honest book. I really do. I pity you. I pity anybody.
Well, that's part of what getting to the truth is all about. And
Well,
I
you
think
have to learn. Yeah,
I
limited
read
hangouts,
I read your book
bait and
first,
switch. Yeah.
and then
Well, mine came out first. So
yeah, I read your book first. I'd read your book, and I'd seen it referenced many times, and then I finally was able to get the hard copy, and I reread it again, and then just recently got S.K. Bain's book. Actually, a friend of mine sent it to me, and it again, he mentions you in it. It's very much in line with this, except for
with the ending, right? So he leads you on.
But it also leaves out so much of the evidence that shows that you really did a lot of research. I mean, this book here is just, I mean, first of all, it's much thicker. This is almost like a textbook that you wrote here. And like you said, the index in the back, you've got the Gnostic anthem, the hymns to Pan. You've got so much, and you can just tell that you really, really read through a lot. You scanned Aleister Crowley's documents. And so it's definitely a much more in-depth book, which is why I reached out to you.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, truly, I tell you, in time, I will be completely vindicated. And the people who think and can compare two pieces of paper together will realize there's real serious problems with that book, with Bain's book.
Okay.
Wow. Very serious.
So
he may not, dude. I think that I got to go back and check. I'm pretty sure that Peter Levenda, there's rituals of Peter Levenda doing OTO rituals. I think you're going to get something solid from a guy who admires Crowley and worked at the Magical Child and is writing books with DeLong, and I mean, don't get me started. Anyway,
did he omit Crowley in a way? Like now that you mentioned that, I kind of think like Crowley's not really mentioned a whole lot in there. And that
read the book side to side. I mean,
do you think?
In my opinion, it's an operation. That book is an operation against the public from really understanding things. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I will be vindicated in time.
Okay. Good to know. On that note, do you think, because the number 93, you wrote a lot about the number 93, unlike others. There's really nobody who has really made that connection. So do you think that, because I've always wondered if there were Thelemites who saw the event in Flight 93 and saw it as a calling almost. What do you think?
It's a signature, yeah. They saw the 11 and 93, and they just knew exactly what was going on.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I think that any Thelemite who saw the events of 9/11, even just the 11, they could put it together. When the first plane hits, it's an 11. It's right there, 175. Even a deeper Thelemite, they all knew. It's a signaling function. No question.
Okay, so on that note, let's talk about 175 and the face. I know you're aware of the face.
Yeah, I think it's possible, but all the other factual elements are scary enough, whether a bomb looks like a satanic face or not.
Well, so we're not being factual. We're being speculative here. So let's put the evidence aside and speculate a bit. You're a Christian. I've had to work so hard to debunk the fact that was photoshopped. It's not photoshopped, and I've proven that it's in multiple angles. And with 175, I'd always wondered, because I'd read what I can of Liber 175. It's very hard to read. Anything
just like Crowley, it's all jargon.
I commend you. Everything you've done is amazing, because Crowley's work is really so hard to read, and it's really, like you said, it's what is it? Is it jargon, mumbo jumbo, new age?
All of it. It's all of that.
Yeah, and so I just wondered again if Liber 175 could actually be this spiritual. If Flight 175 could have been this spiritual thing. It's really made me wonder.
I mean, I think really what happened in 9/11 is those planes were all landed near Cleveland or something like that, and fake planes were sent out. So all those people were probably.
Have you seen my film by chance, 9/11 Alchemy?
No, but I need to watch it.
That's the name of my film, 9/11 Alchemy: Facing Reality.
Okay, well, let's make an arrangement where you come and talk about your film on my show. How about that?
Okay. Well, I'm putting a new one out, and
good.
This interview will be in there because this one's more about the occult. I do mention Crowley in the last one, but that was before I had read your book. And finding your book was like just total confirmation of things I had noticed in my
Is your
mind.
book, is your movie coming out before 9/11/2021?
It'll
New
be right
movie?
on the anniversary.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's figure that out. Let's work that out. I'd love to talk with you about that.
I mean, I don't know what your opinions are. We can have differing opinions. That's
Sure.
totally fine. That's the problem is I made my film because I noticed the truth movement was repeating nonsense. They had so many ties to nonprofit organizations and government stuff. They were leaving out all the occult stuff, no talk about no planes. And I realized that there was a cover up, and it was the truth movement. And all the scholars and lawyers and architects and engineers, they were corrupt, and they were also using Masonic symbolism and other type of symbolism in their logos. Even the architects and engineers, for instance, is basically the Masonic compass. And there's other instances of this where I've seen lawyers committee for 9/11 spell out Lucifer 911. And so
Going into those groups, if they achieved anything, it's a total waste of time.
it
In my
was.
opinion.
And that's why I made my film, because I realized they were lying. And then I realized people like Simon Shack, who made the September Clues, people like Ace Baker, who made the great 9/11 Psy opera, and even others like, unfortunately, what is called the blockbuster, the first internet blockbuster, which was Loose Change.
Right.
These people would talk about, fake video, that all the people who filmed the planes faked their video. And I'm a video editor and a videographer, and I just know that was impossible in 2001. And I just knew it. And then I found out that the people making these films were actually tied to companies that work on advanced optics for the military, optic technology and directed energy. And I realized, oh my gosh, it's a huge cover up for advanced technology. And it tied right into Arthur C. Clarke and this technocratic idea of ritualistic magic,
Any use, what's his third axiom? Any use of high technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah. And you talk about it being a technology influenced magic ritual in your film. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think that they're exposing. I mean, they used high technology to trick people into thinking something happened that didn't happen. So I think they came out of the military industrial complex, which is one generation ahead of anything that the public has, at least one generation
Right.
that we have as far as technology, which should scare you. But yeah, I think that Arthur C. Clarke and Kubrick actually foreshadowed 9/11 with 2001. So it's a huge event. The date was picked, came out of hyper high masonry.
Mm.
I think that Hoffman's book, The Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare, goes in and talks about the monolith as ashlar. So it's like something that comes out of the Masonic thing. It's one thing. And that's what they included in 2001. And you can see that in the Millennium Hotel. Why is it called the Millennium Hotel? Why is it shaped like a monolith? Why are all these monoliths all over the place? Why are the Georgia Guardstones monoliths?
Mm.
So you can see, if you take the wide angle look, you can see all those people. And Arthur C. Clarke, brilliant guy, man. Go read his books. If you read Children of the Beast, my other book, Children of the Beast, I go into Arthur C. Clarke. He has all the numerology. He has all the illuminated numerology down. So they had the 11 stories. The monolith in 2001 is 11 feet tall, right?
In 1967.
Yeah, well, and right. So they had all the numerology. In one of his books, I can't remember which, Childhood's End or something like that, he had 77s, 93s. They're repeating all these important numbers. So now that esotericism is, got distributed, and Arthur C. Clarke was a genius, also a pedophile. So yeah, pretty brutal stuff. So Hoffman's book is excellent. I need to get his new book, but I think that his book, the Psychological Warfare, that book will last the test of time. It's really well. I wish he had referenced it. I wish he had put it in where he got his information.
Yeah, it's very he's a very particular author, but different than a lot of authors. I think your book will absolutely stand the test of time. I think someone needs to bury it in a time capsule for the future generations when this world totally changes, because I think if you don't, if you, even though it makes us uncomfortable, especially for Christians and people, and especially even just for closed-minded people that are just not spiritual at all, it's hard to look at the occult side of 9/11, but you can't actually understand what happened on that day unless you look at this. And I wanted you to talk about AA and American Airlines and 1-1, you know,
The one one.
AA and 1-1 and AA 7-7,
I mean,
you know.
it's all there. It's like Astrum Argentum, which was Crowley's secret society, is AA 11. So you see all the just the numerological representations.
What was
But
AA?
what's that?
What was AA for people that don't know?
Well, there. I mean, Crowley's was the Astrum Argentum or Silver Star, which is the references the moon. That was his kind of mail order magical school. So and it still exists today, but you would learn all these magical things. You would find a head or master who would train you, and that was it. So that was kind of his thing. So you can see the Silver Star, the AA is his insignia or his cult symbol is still around. But
And it's just weird that the American Airlines was for 11 and 77, which were both, you know, yeah, you know, it's just.
I mean, it was. I think that was really they put a lot of thought and energy into that, and it was planned in advance. The real power, yeah. It's
When is this photo? What is this photo here with Bush and his hat?
right. So there's the 77 again. He's got his photo. Go look at his aircraft carrier. What's the number of his aircraft carrier? 77. So he knows what he's doing. Yeah. So he's tying himself to that. And go read, you can read my book and all the stuff he said and all the stuff that foreshadowed it. And probably the 2000 election was probably not, it wasn't like 2020. It was probably a fixed election too. Hunter S. Thompson said as much. So we're really in a technocratic era. We live in a fantasy land if we think we're not. If after 9/11 and the stolen election of 2020,
Okay.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
you're going to
absolutely.
get your leaders are selected. Look at Biden. At the end of my video, at the end of my documentary, 9/11 and the New World Order, there's Biden talking about the New World Order, right? He's making
Yeah.
New World Order speeches. They all are. Kerry,
Yeah.
Biden,
Yeah.
Bush.
They're
So
all
it's
puppets
an
of.
elite idea, but it's there. They're signaling to each other. Like, I'm in on the game, man. I'm going to be an elite, and I'm going to be part of the global aristocracy, and the slave shall serve.
Yeah. And they love to change. So right there, before I forget, you said the slave shall serve. It was so hard for me to find the commentary on the Book of the Law, but I finally found it. It's sold for like thousands of dollars, but I found a digital version and I read it. And oh my gosh, if people do not know, will you just tell people some of the things that he is talking about on the commentary for the Book of the Law, which I think is way worse than the actual book?
Yeah, just all kinds of terrible stuff. Like, he really believed in the aristocratic revolution. And he talked about, I don't know, some of the commentary. I think one of the commentaries I included in my book was, you shall give them the quiet wisdom of the cattle. So the average person is a cow, and then you will kill them for their hide and mutton. So, they had total contempt for other human beings who are outside of their class. And I mean,
Yeah,
I think I included some of those references from that book in there.
you did. And you also talked about it being intended to be public policy.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I mean, yeah.
So again, that makes me think about Bush and the law, not
Right.
the law.
No, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. They're Brahmins. They're highest class of America. If you have a class system, they're at the very top. I think that his mother was like part of one of these big Wall Street firms. I think that her dad or her dad's dad or something was part of one of the firms, and then I think Prescott Bush worked for the Harriman brothers. So these are all kind of white shoe firms, and really the Eastern elite. The Bushes play themselves off as like Texas, rubes or something like that. They're not. Yale, secret society,
Right.
Skull and Bones, Bohemian Club. Just goes on. Intel, the head of the CIA, the whole bit.
I want to talk a little bit about because I know you done quite a bit of research on this. How in my opinion, there's evidence that technology and technological, institutes have been influenced by Crowley, and you outline that in your book. One in particular is Jet Propulsion Laboratory and NASA and the OTO. Will you talk a little bit about Jack Parsons and
Sure. I mean, I think Parsons was considered by Crowley to be his number one adherent at one point. And so there's all kinds of messages between Crowley and Parsons. Parsons was located in Pasadena, which is where the beginnings of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory started. He was part of one of what is called the Suicide Squad. It was him and a guy named Foreman, and Melina, I think, was the third one. And Melina's daughter or son married Ghislaine Maxwell's sister or something like that. So there's a weird tie there. But so part of the Suicide Squad, and there's a picture of Jack Parsons doing one of Crowley's Gnostic masses, which was at a building right there in Hollywood. And so they were kind of mixing with a lot of science fiction types, Warren Hubbard being one. And, every time they would shoot a rocket off, Parsons would recite Crowley's Hymn to Pan, which is probably one of his famous or best known poems. And so and Crowley knew about Hubbard, called Hubbard a con man or whatever. But Parsons was very important until he died in 1952. I think there was an explosion and he died, but he said he saw Satan, Parsons did, when he was younger, and took the oath of the Antichrist. So he was really, and like all these guys, really antagonistic to Christ and Christianity. And then he did the Babylon Working with Hubbard out in the desert. So yeah, he was doing kind of the same stuff that Crowley did, which was John Dee's magic, Enochian magic. And they were using kind of very sophisticated. They had this like magical tablet, and they were trying to get readings in this other language.
right?
My understanding, the purpose of the Babylon Working was to kind of pervade the earth with kind of new magical energy. So that, like, to create a new era, or Crowley would say a new aeon. He called it the aeon of child, something like that. So
yeah.
I think that's what they're doing. So Parsons was very important. Parsons was important as a change agent, at least bringing Crowley's ideas out, at least to the West Coast.
Don't you think also that kind of implicates, space technology in a huge way? Wouldn't you say space technology is born out of the occult?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think in some circumstances, yeah, at least definitely under Parsons. Parsons was in contact with really one of the most important guys in the moon landing was the ex-Nazi. What was his name? Von.
Right, Werner von Braun, and that
Von
again,
Braun, yeah.
right there. I mean, the Nazis have their occult roots as well. And so it begs the question if NASA and space technology and all this is really just born out of these magical occult workings.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there's a very strong possibility. And you can talk about it. Well, after Hitler died in World War II, Crowley said, kind of infamously, playing off the Bible, before Hitler was, I am. So he was saying he was kind of like a precursor to Hitler, and Hitler has all that stuff, triumph of the will, right? So thelema means will in Greek. So you have these same ideas, and that was really Crowley's idea too, is the human will overall. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. That's an 11-syllable, 11-word axiom. So it's really about human will, and if you juxtapose that with kind of like the Christian outlook, it's what's God's will, right? So you're seeing human will versus God's will. But I think that the moon landing was faked. I think that was all magic. I don't think we've ever been to the moon. And the number one rocket to get to the moon was what?
Apollo
11, right? So you see this they're telling you all this stuff. This is magic. And so why haven't we been back to the moon in 50 years? There's all kinds of problems. The technology in my phone today is more powerful than all the technology that they used to supposedly get to the moon, which took somebody to get out of our whatever environment, to get to space, to go through the Van Allen belt, to drop a little shuttle, to drop it off, to fire it back up, attach to that, and fly back. new.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, it's hard to believe. That was actually much harder for me to believe than that 9/11 was fake, was to think the moon landings were fake.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I was right there with you for a long time too. As a kid, I loved NASA. So that was
I had the Apollo 11 rocket. It was the
yeah,
big, long, white rocket. You could take it
yeah.
apart when I was a kid.
It's
So,
crushing. And, on that note, though, nobody ever says what you just said. And that is something I've been dedicated to for years, is proving that magic is absolutely part of all of this. That's what it is. You just said right there that the moon landings were basically a magic trick. That's what 9/11 was, in my opinion. And if you really go back to what is film, the first film made was a trip to the moon. You've got a bunch of wizards taking a trip to the moon, so it's always been like this dark magic sorcery going on and still happening.
yeah, I think that the real head guys, the top elite and the Masons, the post Masons, are much more into magic than people would think. They look kind of the same on the surface, but every prime minister of the UK for the last 400 years has been a Mason. You just keep seeing these occult things pop up. Go to DC and go look at the House of the Temple. I mean, somebody lovingly created this house with the sphinxes of Eliphas Levi that have the magical dictum to know, to will, to dare, and remain silent. They're right there at the front. So whenever you see a sphinx, you got to kind of sit up in your chair and go, wow, this is referencing Eliphas Levi, who Pike really gratuitously ripped off, is my understanding. So the overlap, the occult, the masonry, and I can't say, it's really I mean, it gets really deep. It's a pretty grim situation, because I think that a lot of those people kind of are still types in power, and probably why Biden was selected for that office. I don't even know how Trump became president, but
I'll be honest with you. I mean, we can cut this out. That the Trump thing it's esoteric. It's so esoteric as well. I've already,
think you're right.
You've got the Trump cards within the tarot deck, which
Right.
is the story of the fool, and it's just so. And like you mentioned earlier, with the tarot cards and the hour and the lightning bolt and Harry Potter, to me, it's all just dark magic. It's almost and what was confirmed for me in Michael Hoffman's new book, one of the things is I've always felt like this predictive programming, what we now call predictive programming, is more a magic trick, and we are the volunteer. What the magician says, hey, I need a volunteer from the audience, right?
Right.
We are that volunteer by watching these films and paying for these movie tickets, and then not objecting, I guess some people
Right.
would
You
say.
just go along with it, right?
Right.
But it's also a sign of their power to
It is.
get you involved or let you know or dangle it in front of your eyes.
Indeed.
So they're playing a very deep game, a long game too. And it's pretty disturbing.
Do you think this poem that you have here, it's the Philosopher's Stone one, that made me think about alchemy, and it made me think about Harry Potter and 9/11.
I mean, I think you just see all those, I think you just see all those themes. Like Crowley was really kind of a scholar of the occult. I mean, he had his own kind of encyclopedia of questionable veracity or
Yeah.
skill. But I mean, I think that he was really always compiling and putting stuff together. So I think that the Philosopher's Stone, he talked about the elixir of life, these other ideas that had been in Western esotericism for hundreds of years. And the Philosopher's Stone was one of them.
It's kind of chalk it up to what you said, him being a spoiled brat who didn't have to work, so he just had time to play around with whatever dark stuff he could find.
And he's from it's not like the United States. This is a very class conscious, class based system of hierarchies, and your labor for the rest of your life. So he didn't mix with it wasn't like George Orwell, who went out and tried to see what the regular people were doing. He didn't have that egalitarian sensibility. You throw some Satanism in there and wealth, and he just didn't identify with them. And I think there is a Crowley figure in Harry Potter. I think one of the characters, I haven't researched it enough, but one of these characters is definitely like dresses like Crowley.
I'd be interested to look into that, because
it's in, I think, one of the third or fourth movies, the intro. They have like some kind of, what do they call it when they do all the flying around on the Witch brooms. Yeah, when they're doing it, there's this guy who like starts off the festivities. It looks exactly like Crowley.
Oh, really?
I have to go back and look. I haven't done
That's
all that
interesting.
much. And there's the intro one. The first one has a guy who's a flat out alchemist, Nicholas Flamel. So one of the characters she put in was an alchemist. So she's
really?
hinting at us, yeah.
In real life, yeah. See, that's not. I mean, that's
right.
not
Like a real. You can go and type into Wikipedia, Flamel, and it'll tell you he's a 16th century alchemist. Yeah.
Right, and that really speaks to like what we were saying about her earlier, and just J.K. Rowling as an author.
So we're much more exposed to it. If you lived through 9/11, you're very fortunate, and you're in a much. I think it's just not. It's more liminal than really in front of your face, the occultism, but it should be. I think for the average person, they need to realize what's around them. It's really kind of the point of a lot of my books, really.
At the end of your book, rather than giving some crazy predictions about the next 9/11,
right.
You gave us some really good information, like stuff that's in the air, stuff that's in the water, right? One of the points you talk about, which here we are 10 years after the publishing, over 10 years after the publishing, poison vaccines. Currently, a majority of vaccines used in medicine are tainted with poisonous material. How relevant is that in 2021?
It couldn't be more relevant. I think that they're really gearing up to. I think that those vaccines are going to cost. I mean, they've already cost tons of deaths. There's probably 50,000, 100,000 deaths in the U.S. Maybe, I don't know. But people are dropping dead of those, and the long-term effects. And what's really scary is the efficacy of those vaccines is even fake. It's all fake. You probably should just go get COVID and build your immunity. It's probably better than I wouldn't take that vaccine. I don't take vaccines. I don't take the flu shot as a fraud. So a lot of the stuff that you're in an environment where they're just killing you off. So I really, and the media is super corrupt and does not have your best interest in mind. So they're billionaires made off of those vaccines. So if you create the panic, you get the money put aside, you make all that money, they're going to just lay on booster after booster after booster because they're going to make a fortune off it. Think about the cost of a vaccine times 150 million people. It's a lot of money. So,
and I think people forget that because it's free, it's putting our government more in debt to the whatever we could call them, the oligarchy, the synarchy, the elite, the Illuminati, whoever it is. I know there's a lot of right-wing talk of China, and then you got the left, I don't buy into the left-right paradigm, honestly, at all.
The people at the top are the same. Sorry, you're right.
They absolutely are, and they're all getting money from pharmaceutical companies and the military-industrial complex. And again, that's why I love your book, like the conclusion that you have there in the end with all that before you go into Aleister Crowley's writing in the future, which is just a whole nother.
Yeah, it's kind of a grim situation. I think that
before I wrap it up, I just want you to kind of reiterate to the audience what he really was going for with the Book of the Law. I mean, when I read the commentary, to me, it seemed there's no doubt in my mind that Aleister Crowley, 9/11, and the New World Order, and again, we've got other words, the Old World Order or the Great Reset now, right?
Good point. Yes.
So what is it? What was he saying? What did Crowley actually push for?
Well, I think ultimately that he had this vision of his master being installed on a throne. So I think it would be he's going to fulfill the Book of Revelation, which is why he borrowed a lot of stuff from the Book of Revelation. So I think that he really wanted the future to be this horror nightmare state of really an elite ruling over a herd of people who were constantly terrified and in a state of ignorance. So I really think that was his goal. He called himself a priest to the princes was one of his things. So I think that he was really that was what he was gearing for. And in some ways, those people who will pick up that torch and carry it forward. So you got to be careful.
At some point, he says, he says, you will observe that I'm advocating for an aristocratic revolution. And so I am.
Right. So, right. They're never good when you have, it's basically neo-feudalism, and you can kind of see this movement toward neo-feudalism right now. If you, the average person, I think there's a significant proportion of the American public, 40 or 45%, that a $500 charge, they could not make it. They could not pay for an emergency thing. So they're just living hand to mouth, not much different than a serf in the 16th century medieval environment. So if you
Yeah.
think you're free, you might want to go back and review ideas of freedom, liberty, because if you have a bunch of guys printing up money and they're all going to their friends and they're all getting the slice of the pie and you're getting a little trickle down, I wouldn't say you're free at all. And they're, I mean, to me, they're just looting the fiscal quality of this country before the Great Reset or whatever, because you can't sustain this amount of debt. So 4.5 trillion more on, I mean, they just printed the most money that's ever been printed in the last couple of years. So, I mean, it's terrifying. They want the reset. They're putting all the pieces in place to make the reset happen. So you really want to stay close to home, double down on your guns, and don't trust the media.
Yeah. Great. Well said. That's a good point to end it. Before I let you go, I'm really interested in The Children of the Beast. Will you just maybe give me a quick synopsis on what that book is?
Yeah, it's just really Crowley's influence. So I go through people I talk about Harry Potter in that. I talk about Adolf Hitler, similar ideology. I talk about some of the people he influenced that you may know: Timothy Leary, the Beatles, Ozzy Osbourne did a song about Aleister Crowley. Talk about Kenneth Anger, who was involved in the Manson family with Bobby Bouzoulet. And some of these groups that offshoot that people might not know, L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. I mean, you have quotes. There's actually video or audio of him talking about Crowley. And his son said he used to fondle Crowley's material. So Scientology is carrying kind of on the occult tradition, or was. It's not as popular anymore because people kind of know its mechanics. But Crowley's influence was much less realized than I think the public knows. And I think that book is an attempt to, and I have a documentary as well on Vimeo if you want to watch that. Yeah, so I have a book and documentary on that. It just shows his impact on political and cultural events, if you include 9/11.
And you also have, I watched a recent interview you did about the Smiley Face murders, which I didn't know about. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the more recent work you've been doing and books you've been putting out?
Sure, yeah. So I did 2 documentaries about the Smiley Face killers, which is a phenomenon of young men disappearing at night in bars all around the world and being found later in water, sometimes much later than should have been, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks later. So I did an inquiry into that. It really got its name because people were finding the smiley face close to where either the people were put in water or they were found. And the 2 guys who coined it were Gilbertson and Gannon. And so I thought it was an urban legend, but then I started watching it. I watched a couple guys actually disappear and die, being found in water later. And one of them was named Dakota James out of Pittsburgh. And another one was Joey LaBute in Columbus, Ohio. So I just watched that phenomenon. They were at bars, probably possibly drugged, disappeared from their group. So, and then I just put out a book called Global Death Cult, which is pretty scary. Kind of these groups that believe in killing people, believe in culling, and that's really kind of their central ideas. And they absorbed a lot of other occult stuff from Crowley too, but also other esoteric traditions. And that just came out. And there's stuff that just happened actually yesterday. They had one of these guys that I studied, which is the Temple of Blood, I think in South Carolina. There's just came out information that he may have been a Fed and supplying information to the FBI. So that's pretty crazy. That was in a court document by the guy who's being prosecuted by the government. So that's and there's been some murders and things associated with that within the last couple of years, associated with this group called the Order of Nine Angles in Atomwaffen. So people might want to kind of keep abreast of that. There's some pretty dark things happening in the world right now for sure.
Wow, very interesting. And where can people go to find that book?
You can buy it from my website, WilliamRamseyInvestigates.com. It's on Amazon, and all 5 of my documentaries are on Vimeo, and all my books can be found on Amazon. If you want signed copies, you can go to WilliamRamseyInvestigates.com.
Oh, that's great. So people can just go to Vimeo and type in William Ramsey Investigates, and then your documentaries will be there.
Yeah, I think all my documentaries are in the VOD place. If actually, I think the links are at my website. So you can just go to williamramseyinvestigates.com, and my Vimeo is in one of the pages on my website. You can just click through and watch them up there. You know, the $5 a piece, not very expensive.
Yeah, no, and I totally support that. YouTube is trash. You've been kicked off YouTube. I've been kicked off YouTube. I basically cannot upload any content. I put something out on YouTube, it's immediately gone. I can't say anything. So I encourage people, go over, pay the $5, get the good information. And again, don't support big corporations like Amazon. Go over to William Ramsey's website, get you a signed copy of one of his books. If you're interested, Prophet of Evil, 9/11 and the New World Order. Aleister Crowley, 9/11 and the New World Order, rather. As well as Children of the Beast, which I'll be picking up soon, and some of your new investigative pieces around, I guess, what we would call true crime. Really.
Yeah, true crime. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the phenomenon is real. Probably 200 or 300 people it's happened to. It's my basically, yeah, it's bad. And even the global death cult too is really kind of, there's murders associated with that.
And you said you have a documentary on the global death cult people can find too?
Not yet. No, I do not have.
Oh, there's a trailer I think I saw.
There might be a trailer for the book. I don't know.
Okay, great. Okay, well, again, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure, Chris. Let's keep in touch. I'd love to have you on my show, talk about your documentary.
Oh, great. Thank you. Awesome, William. Thank you, man.
All right. Cheers.
All right. Talk to you soon, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.